Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this first session of parenting of Let's Raise Good Kids with Universe Talkies. We'll just wait for a few more people to join in and then start. I hope you're having a good Saturday and a good weekend. I know it's getting really hot, at least here in Gurgaon. I don't know how the weather is in the rest of the country, but I'm really excited to be here today. So let's wait for a few more people to come in. And then we can start. Waiting for all of you to join so that we can go ahead. So do we have a few viewers already? Guess we'll wait for a few more people to come in. I guess weekends are always busy, especially for us moms. So many things to do. Break from homeschooling. The housework never stops. But I hope some of you will take the time to be online today. I see a few people. So maybe we should start and let the rest join. So let me start. So good afternoon all of you. A very warm welcome to this very first session on parenting with me, Gitika Sasan Bhandari. I've recently started a parenting platform called Let's Raise Good Kids, and I'm very, very happy to be here on Universe Talkies today. And I really want to thank them for giving me this platform to come here and to talk to all of you. Why I started this platform, what I hope to achieve with it, we'll get to that in a bit. I think before that, let me just rewind a little bit and tell you about myself and who I am so you can know me a little better. I'm a mom to 2 children. I'm also a lifestyle journalist and have been one for 23 years. I've worked across several cities, Delhi, Gurgaon, Chandigarh, Mumbai. I've written for magazines, publications, digital space, weekly news magazine, newspaper. So I've really done a lot of things, met a lot of interesting people, traveled. But somewhere in the middle of all of this, all my stints at India Today several times, in fact, different verticals, the Times of India, A&M, Cosmopolitan, Better Homes and Gardens, Child Magazine. In all of these, I think when I joined Child Magazine as editor, I really found that space that resonated with me. And ever since I've been writing on parenting, I have continued to write on parenting, even when I've given up full-time work and become a freelancer over the last 2-3 years because I relocated out of India. But parenting is something I feel very strongly about. And I feel that, it's not rocket science, but of course everybody has their own challenges, their own trajectory. And we just have to kind of, rely on each other for support, look at research studies, best practices, see what's working and keep trying. None of us are perfect. This journey has got so many highs and lows, as you all know. There are those really super rewarding days where your children will do something, say something to make you so happy. And then there are those really trying, frustrating days when all you want to do is run away from home and just, get a coffee or get a glass of wine with some friends. So we've all gone there, and I'm sure there are going to be many more such days and years. But on the whole, I think it's a great, it's very humbling to think about the fact that you're actually getting to help in shaping somebody's personality, molding who they really become. And I think that responsibility is even more on us today as parents in the 21st century, seeing at what's happening around us in the world. So like I was saying, parenting is something that's always been very close to my heart, and I wanted to take it to the digital platform. But they say that man proposes, God disposes. So somehow maybe this was the right time for it to take shape, and I couldn't do it earlier. So the reason I really started this and why I started it now is because somehow COVID really got me thinking on what kind of world, what kind of future our children are going to inherit and going to go into as they become adults. Looking at what all is going on in the world, one thing we can say for sure is that it is a rapidly evolving, dynamic world where nothing remains the same. There is no such thing as stability. And with On one hand, I mean, there are bushfires in Australia at the beginning of the year, California, you have all sorts of floods. We had Amphan, you have, tsunamis, earthquakes, and these are just the natural disasters. In the corporate world, you have recession, and we are all seeing how COVID is going, and we're going to feel the economic impact for years to come. People lose jobs, there's a heartbreak, relationship, long distance relationships, countries, cities, because people move all over now, whether it's for college or post graduation or jobs. How are these children going to cope in a world where there is really no sort of guideline, no template? In the earlier days, I think what really happened is that we saw our parents or the generation before that living their entire life in very cocooned, stable environments. They probably were born in the same house, lived in the same city their entire life, worked there, got married there, retired there. People were in the same job for 20, 30, 40 years. Now that seems almost unthinkable. So I think somewhere we always gave stability a lot of importance. We always put it on a pedestal. When children got older, then they were always told to kind of, it's time to settle down. So that meant you get married, have a family, you sort of put in your roots. Change was the very antithesis to this. Unless you were in the forces or somewhere where your father or your mother, whoever was getting posted, and because of which you were moving, people didn't move around that much. But now, of course, borders have opened up, and I mean, not in, of course, COVID times, but otherwise there is so much of movement across countries and people move all over. So the fact of the matter is that change is very much a part of our lives. Adapting to change, I think, is one of the biggest skills that our children are going to need to manage this new world, this world which is fraught with so much change and so much uncertainty. I think values and life skills will really help us raise confident, resilient children, flexible, adaptable to change, who can really navigate any situation that life throws at them, where it will not matter what the external circumstances are, what is going on around. As long as they are able to be in control of who they are, their emotions, their physical well-being, their mental well-being, then they can manage anything around them, or at least they will have the correct or the suitable response to deal with that situation. So today I would really, and I hope this is the first of many sessions, so I can deal with each of these. We can talk about all these life skills as we go along. Today I would really like to focus on change. And why I think change is so important is because honestly we're really at, I feel, some sort of a crossroads where the whole world almost needs to kind of reorient. I mean, let's look at COVID. Now, none of us thought that this would ever happen. We thought the lockdown was for 2 weeks, and now we're 6 or 7 months into it. But the fact is, somewhere we have found that inherent strength within us. We have found that adaptability within us, that we have managed to literally rejig our entire lives. We now work from home, our kids do school from home, we managed without any help at all. So there was cooking, cleaning, so many chores to do, children to be managed, our own work to be managed. But we did manage. At one time there was no home delivery, supplies were really sort of restricted, limited, mobility was so restricted. In the middle of all of this, people have had to deal with health problems, people have had been laid off, people have had to cope with cutbacks on salaries, reduced salaries, no increments. The fact of the matter is, we didn't even know we had it within us, but we did. We were able to change, we were able to adapt to the situation that was suddenly thrown at us with absolutely zero manual to really understand how to deal. We had never been taught, but the fact is, somewhere we managed. Now that we have managed and we have reached this point, wouldn't it be so much better if we could give our children these skills so that they could manage even better, depending on what comes their way. Today it's a COVID, tomorrow it could be something completely different, and it probably will. So how do we really go about making children adaptable and flexible and ready to embrace change? To me, I think the first and the most important point, and I've said this before, is that parents really have to model it themselves. Now, I want you to take a minute to think about how you react to change. Because a lot of times you don't realize that children take their cues, verbal and non-verbal, from your reactions to change. So when you have to get either a new help in the house, or let's say you're changing job, or changing a city, or moving to a new house, are you grumbling and restless and whining about the change? Are you trying to resist and fight it till the very end? And then you find suddenly you're thrown in the deep end of the ocean, because change is not going to wait for you. It's going to happen nevertheless. Then you're scrambling around like someone who doesn't know how to swim. You haven't been organized enough because you didn't, work it backwards, and because of which obviously you're going to hate that change, because it's caused this whole tsunami in your life, and you don't know how to deal with it. You haven't prepared yourself to deal with it. If this is what your child routinely sees, how do you think that same child, so many years later, when he or she, let's say, goes abroad for college or goes to another city to live, how is that child going to respond to change? That child has internalized the behavior that the child has seen you do. And when I say you, I mean you, your husband, your immediate family, your unit. That child has seen that change is bad, change is to be resisted, to be fought. That child is not getting the message from you that change is about growth. Change is about learning and relearning. Change is about new people, new cultures, new environments, and it is essentially about constantly evolving. It's about evolution. The day you stop evolving, the day you stop learning, you're going to reach a plateau. You're going to become complacent. So change is always going to push you. But the point is, it all depends on what you think about change here and here. The response to change, your reaction to the change, is what will really make it a happy, pleasurable experience or a miserable one. So I'm going to give you an example from my own life. 3 years ago, my family and I, we relocated from Gurgaon to Lagos, Nigeria. Now, of course, we knew it's a big step to move to not only another country, but another continent, which is very, very different from Asia. We knew our children are also going to face a lot of questions. So we sat them down, we spoke to them, we told them our lives are going to change, this is how it's going to be, and we tried our best to answer all their questions. We showed them a map, we showed them physically how far we were going to move. We also prepared them for questions that we knew family and well-wishers were going to put to them. Is Nigeria safe? Why do you want to go to the land of black people? We are inherently racist. We say these things without realizing the impact on children. So we knew they were going to face these questions. We had prepared them as much as we possibly could. But at the same time, every child, in fact every human being, responds differently to change. So when we were at the airport, the grandparents were upset, there were some tears. So my older child, who was 10 and a half, she also cried for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and I think she got it out of her system, and after that she was fine. Now my younger child, who was not even 6, she had seen the whole house being packed, she had seen this whole, months of preparation, visa, planning, all of that. But she didn't realize that this could be a permanent move. So when we were at the airport, she was a little flummoxed to see why everyone is crying, because she had a little knapsack and she had her plush toy. I think she thought we were going on our annual holiday, because that's what the airport meant to her. So she, I think, couldn't really figure out what was going on. When we reached Nigeria, within 2 or 3 days, they had to start school. And that morning, I think it really hit her that this is now home and this is here to stay, and there is going to be no, India to go back to. And that is when she started crying and vomiting, and she made herself sick. So of course I took her to school. I waited in the reception, as I'm sure a lot of you moms have done in the play school years, waited there, very, on tenterhooks, nervous. Anyway, when I would go to pick her up at dispersal, her class teacher would always tell me that, don't worry, she cried for 5-10 minutes, but then after that she was okay. So I really thought next day is going to be better. But the next morning, again, the same amount of crying, the same amount of vomiting. You will not believe, but I think I finished 1.5 or 2 bottles of Ondem in that 1.5 weeks. I think whatever supply I had carried was over in those 2 weeks. So again, the next day, howling, crying. By the 3rd, 4th day, My husband and I are arguing. He's saying, you're being too soft, you need to let her go. I'm feeling like, my God, she's gone through so much change already, but I didn't know what to do. So I would keep sending her to school, keep dealing with that, and the mornings became miserable for the whole family. So one day was really bad, and she just, she begged and pleaded and said, please don't send me to school, please don't send me to school. So I told her, okay, fine, one day I'll let you be home. Then another one of these days where again she was howling, and we were almost ready to get into the car. She was in uniform, everything. I just, I don't know, something snapped. I said, okay, forget it, don't go to school today. So that day she stayed home. Her sister went to school. So she stayed home. I think she must have come with me doing whatever odd jobs or errands. But she got quite bored. She realized that, it's really very boring to sit at home with no company. And from the next day, I noticed a change in her mindset. There was no more crying, and that, that sort of retaliation reduced. And then she settled in and she was fine. So with some children, you need to take a little bit more time, and nobody understands your child better than you. You know which child is more sensitive, which child needs a little bit more hand-holding, and which child is, generally more open to new experiences, new vistas, and new environments. So the thing about change is that instead of suddenly putting this on your children, start preparing them for it from the very beginning, from the time that they are really young. Now, how can you do this? Let's rewind a little to or why rewind? I mean, some of you might be having children in that age group, or even children who are going to go into that age group. So you're going to get to that play school, stage. Now, don't wait for the first day of play school to tell your child off for 1 week before. Start finding ways to weave it into conversations from an earlier time. The play school is going to be so much fun, you're going to make friends, you're going to do this. Of course, don't overdo it also. The child starts wondering, like, what the hell is this play school? Do it in a nice, fun way. Maybe drive past the school once you've decided, so the child has a sense of familiarity and looks forward to the experience. Then later, you will notice when children go to big school, and then they make a lot of friends the first year, and then after 1 year, or some schools do it after 2 years, they are told that they are going to be shuffled. Now, I know umpteen number of houses and cases where this has caused huge amount of tears, tantrums, crying children, upset, I want to be with my friends. Some schools even allow you to, go and ask them to place 2 friends together, or they do it themselves. You can give the names of maybe 2-3 friends of the child. Now, my suggestion is, do not interfere and intervene in this process. There is a reason that schools have this strategy. It's not something that they haven't thought about and they've just put it in that timetable for fun. It's not fun for them either. It's so much easier for them to have the same number of kids, the same kids going every year, with the same section. I'm sure administratively it's easier. Why do they do it? They do it because it's very important to move around and learn to make new friends. Now tomorrow, when your child goes into an office or goes into a completely new environment, he or she should be able to do that, to break the ice, to go there, to talk to people, to have a conversation, right? So from the school days, if you tell your child that yes, of course you're going to have a new section, but who knows, you might meet your new best friend here, or you might, find more people who are like-minded, who have the same interests as you. Always make opposition change as something good, something to look forward to, something that they can use as a platform of growth. Whether it is a new activity or a new club or a new sports, that they're trying out for the first time, or like I said, the shuffling sections. Don't interfere and go to the teacher on behalf of the child. Your child is going to be maybe slightly uncomfortable. Let the child deal with that discomfort. That discomfort is important for the child to come out of their shell and to understand that this is a part of my life and I have to learn to cope. If you are always going to be there, that child is not going to be independent. And I read this somewhere, and I think it's a really good quote, that parents have to be their children's guide, not their saviors. If you're constantly going to be there to save your child from every little new experience, that child is not going to grow. It's like a little fish in a pond who's never going to leave that pond their entire life. And then one day, when suddenly they have to go swim in the ocean, they're not going to know what to do. So please let this shuffle, let this change happen, let children try new things. Now, holidays are a great way for children to also see change. There are new cultures. Take them for a little bit of sightseeing. Tell them about different people. Let them try different food. I see a lot of parents are very worried about what will my child eat. My child will go hungry. No child goes hungry. Resist the temptation to carry your home food along, except maybe just for the journey. Even I would say, even airplane food is fine. Nobody ever gets really sick on airplane food. Let them eat it, because the more you sort of mollycoddle them and keep letting them stick to familiar things, similar things, how will they ever try anything? So even at home, if my children say that they make a face at a vegetable and they don't want to eat it, I always tell them you have to try. Then you can give me your opinion on whether you like it or not, but you cannot say no without trying. So resist the urge, like I said, of carrying home food all the time. Make sure they try new food. Now, I went to China. I know China is so riled right now, the country. Nobody wants to hear about it, but it's a beautiful country. We had gone for a holiday to China. My younger child was only 4 years old at that time. So she was not really open to trying a lot of foods. Her palate was very restricted at that time. But at most restaurants, you get boiled rice. So I used to put butter and she would have boiled rice and butter. So I think you also, in your head as a parent, need to get over some of these inhibitions. If your child goes on a holiday and their routine goes out of whack for 2 weeks, nothing will happen. No long-term harm is going to come to that child because that child had late or different sleeping hours or ate different kind of food. These are changes that are very, very important. Imagine if you had a child who cannot even sleep in another bed or cannot, get used to another pillow. Think about how difficult life will be for this child later when they go out and have to live on their own, set up home on their own, go live in another place. So if you let them from an early age try different foods, go to different places where automatically they will see that every place is different. There's a different transport system that works. The accents are different. The language is different. It is a huge learning in itself. So we settle down very well in Nigeria, and let me tell you, kids are far more resilient than we give them credit for. I think a lot of the stress comes because we worry on their behalf. I don't think we should do that. We need to only worry on our own behalf. But once we ourselves change, we ourselves respond to change positively and happily, children will automatically follow suit. They're not very difficult. They're not very, they're not very tough to kind of settle into new things. It's we who make them like that. Because sometimes we don't even realize our responses, we don't even realize that they are around and they are absorbing, they are looking at us and they are understanding everything that we are saying and doing. So if you have made up your mind about change and then you project it to your children, sit down as a family, talk to them, tell them that this is what the world is going through, even if it's something as negative as COVID. Try to also always let them look at the positive side of it, in the sense, always look at the silver lining. Now, gratitude is a very important part of change. Whenever there is change, what happens is, what children take for granted is suddenly shaken up. So they feel, oh my God, I don't have these things to clutch onto. They need to realize that they don't need to clutch onto anything. The biggest reservoir of that strength lies within them. Their happiness does not come from having their coloring books and their crayons next to them or having their TV or their iPad. These are extraneous elements. The real happiness, the real peace, the real contentment comes from within. So gratitude is so important to make children constantly realize that you are grumbling about change. Look at the change that others have been through. Look at the migrant labor, what they've had to go through. Look at the amount of people who've lost jobs. So, we're all going through this change together, but we are very thankful. We need to be very grateful for what we have. Instead of constantly thinking about what we don't have or what we may not have, for a little while, we don't need to look at that. We need to constantly tell them to be thankful for what they have. And then they will automatically, change will become part of their life, where they will keep looking for the good in it, instead of only looking for the bad. Because sometimes what happens also, not sometimes, every time, change basically jolts you. It pulls you out of your comfort zone and puts you into something new. But why is new bad? New is good. So if you kind of, reorient the way you look at change, you will automatically display all these things. You will prepare for the change better. You will be more meticulous, more organized. And then automatically, your children will also see that. They will also start organizing their things, get ready to move, if it's a move to a new place. Even if it's a change within a classroom or a section, a new city, tell them. So when I go on holidays, what I do before going on holidays, I used to tell my children that we're looking at these few destinations. Why don't you do your own research and come back to me? Or why don't you make a small presentation and tell me out of these two places which one you want to go to and why? So let them start exploring the new place as a fun activity to do. Let them start looking at it and saying, okay, wow, these are new things there, this could be good. So there is no reason to constantly be fearful of change, because I think a lot of this resistance comes from inherent fear. A lot of it comes from this insecurity that how will I cope. I think after COVID, none of us need to ever worry about how we will cope, because we have coped. I think the most positive message you can give your children from this change is, look at how far we've come. Where did we think we would be? We never imagined that we would manage, that we would homeschool kids for 6 months. We would manage, I'm sure all of you have had those bosses who won't give you one day off or let you work from home one day. And now you're probably far more productive. Or even if you want, everybody's work is still going on. It may not be at the same level. Some jobs do require actual face-to-face interaction. But the fact is that we're all doing okay, So if you bring or, say this message to your children, talk to them that even in a time like COVID, there's so much to be thankful for. Look at how much we've learned. The technology curve, people have ascended the technology curve in a remarkable fashion. I have to talk about teachers here. Look at the look at the way they have had to actually learn a brand new skill that their entire life, especially older teachers, now have to not only teach their children without interacting with them face to face, they have had to put their entire lessons onto easy, user-friendly, children-friendly modules where they don't lose that attention span, and all of it they've had to do themselves. Sometimes it's presentations, sometimes they're shooting videos, where they have to look at the speed, they have to look at the quality, they have to look at the volume or the voice. Not everybody has children at home or nephews and nieces who can help them, right? A lot of them have done this themselves and it's been hard. But the fact is that they have also done it. They have also coped. So likewise, I think we have all, and okay, cooking is the other thing. There were people who had never entered the kitchen who are cooking so well. Just because they never needed to, or they never gave themselves a chance, or they weren't interested, or they thought they weren't interested. People have picked up gardening, people have done courses online, it's given them that time to do that. It's given families time to bond, to go back to simple basic things like Uno and Ludo and Scrabble and, Pictionary and name place animal thing. So a lot of these things maybe in our sort of, frenetic, fast-paced life, we've kind of forgotten or not had time for. But it's given families that time to be together, that time to do these little thing, watch movies together, simple stuff that you didn't always have time for. Go for walks together. People have managed to get their fitness back on track. Maybe they were dealing with certain niggling health issues, or they managed to eat cleaner. There were a lot of things not available, so they detox. But there are so many things that this change has also brought about, and some of these are probably life-altering changes. And these are changes that we may look back later and say that, I would have never done that in my life had it not been that phase or that period or that, dreaded COVID. So, of course, these things we look at in hindsight. But if you just sit and think for 5-10 minutes, you will also find, I'm sure, that despite the gloom and despite what we're all going through, there are definitely positive things that have come out of it. And likewise, I think every change in your life will always bring with it something good. Of course, there will be days of frustration and there will be days of, wondering whether you've done the right thing. That is normal. That happens to all of us. But don't let that part, that side of it, override what could be a fantastic new beginning. And I think also as parents, our children need to see us as more, out there, more fearless, ready to take on new adventures, become explorers, and have that zeal and zest for life to kind of really explore new frontiers, new places. Because if we don't have that, how do you expect that they are going to have it? And that is the world today. That old world is over, where everything is going to happen in the same city and you're going to be able to keep them in your house forever. You can't, and you can never be there for them all the time. You can't keep sort of spoon feeding and hand holding. You can only do it till a certain point, and beyond that, these are the skills that will take them forward. This resilience, this confidence to be able to deal with anything, this inner strength to be able to get by difficult times, hard times. This is really education. Schooling is everything else. The academics, I'm sure they're all in, activity classes, sports. But this part, this actual development of them as human beings, I think this is our biggest role as parents, and this is what we really, really need to focus on. So I hope you enjoyed that, and if there are any questions, then we can take them. What to do if I and my spouse don't see eye to eye on the change, which is Sonika. Okay, very, very common, happens to all of us. I think the most important thing is dialogue. You have to, and you have to also, in fact, display this conflict resolution in your own home for children to learn. So you have to sit and talk it out, because if both of you are not on the same page, children are very quick to pick up on this dissonance, and then they realize very quickly which parent is talking the same tune as the one they want or the one they want to hear. So please sit down with your spouse, talk about the change, thrash out every aspect of it, and then move forward, or then sit down with your children and talk to them as one unit and one team. I think when they see that you both are very strong on that decision, and you have sort of thought it through, and you know what you're doing, that is enough for them to draw their strength from and to dispel that fear that they have in them. But if they see that you both only are not on the same page, you yourselves are not, you haven't quite figured it out, then they will also be scrambling. They will not know where to draw that strength from. So I hope that answers your question. Indu wants to know, Indu Saxena Bedi, this is such an ignored parenting topic up till now, the fact that we need to teach children to adapt to change. Yes, I think Indu, it really is. I think we always felt that these are things that are inherent. We don't really need to teach them. But I think all the more in today's day and age, it is so important for us to instill this in our children, so that they are well-adjusted individuals as they go out into the world, and they're not making frantic calls to you at 18 and 19 because they don't know what's happened. Suddenly they're out there, and it's such a big shock to them because they've never moved out of the house and they're so used to everything being done for them. So all these things are getting them ready for the big change that they're going to have in their lives, making them independent about their own things, all those other skills that we will discuss in hopefully future sessions. Who else? How can I make a transition easier for an overly sensitive child? Now, like I said about my younger daughter, she was obviously far more sensitive than the older one. What I did is I spent a lot of time with her. I would talk to her, I would talk through her fears. And in fact, this is also a very important point, so I'm glad you asked this question. Now, what happens when children are fearful about something, when they are small, let's say they're toddlers, or let's say they're 5-6 years old. A lot of times what happens is that we are older, we have been through that phase, we know it's very minor, so we tend to scoff it, brush it on the carpet, laugh at them. Oh, what a silly thing to be scared of. Come on, of course you're going to be okay. You can't do that to a child. To that child, that change is huge. Think about the first time that you probably traveled abroad, or you traveled alone. You went to a big airport where you had no clue how to go, immigration is going to come first, or security, or you landed up at a new airport in another country. You felt completely overwhelmed. For that child, that play school is like a huge big airport, or it's like another country. So you need to validate your child's concerns, show empathy, put yourself in that child's shoes and understand where that child is coming from. And not only you, don't let other uncles and aunts and relatives and well-wishers also scoff and laugh at the child and try to, make fun of it. For the child, his or her fears are very real. It is not something to be laughed at and scoffed at. So first and foremost, do that. And then, talk it through with the child. Maybe make the teacher aware. So in Nigeria, I found this really good. There was a diary that would go back and forth, right? We all have it, I think, in our schools. Why only Nigeria? But they were very insistent that if your child is facing any emotional issue, please keep us informed. Make us aware so that we can also help. So the teacher doesn't want to just sort of scold a child who she knows is going through a lot of transition, and maybe that's why the child couldn't complete the homework or whatever it was. Always keep the teacher informed. Say that, yesterday was a little better, or this morning again she's howled a lot, so I'm letting you know that, she's again in that mood today. It will help the teacher also to communicate better with the child, and you just have to keep at it. I mean, there is nothing else to do. Give the child a few treats, allow the child a few indulgences during that time. So maybe if your child wants to carry something to school, something that they're familiar with, ask the teacher if they can take it, a small toy or something, or maybe a treat, something that the child enjoys. candy, I don't know, ice cream, whatever, anything like that. And the other thing I did which may work is that my child's birthday came very soon after joining school. So I really went out of my way to have a big party and call her entire section. It was tough for me. I was in a brand new country. My stuff had not arrived from India, so whatever the service department had. And people told me that, my God, within 1 month you've done this, but I did this only for her to settle down. So that she would kind of fit in and gel, and it would feel like, she's part of them, and that also I think really helped. So of course, as a parent, you know best, but make that little extra effort for that child, and after that you'll see it'll be smooth sailing. My child just does not want to try new things. What can I do? I think the thing with this is, like I said earlier, you have to start this from a very early age, and sometimes you have to be strict. You have to also not give in every time your child says, I don't want to try this, I don't want to eat this, I don't want to go there. Don't let it come to that stage. Always encourage, no, you have to try something new, let's try this, order different cuisines, expose your children to different cultures, make yourself also make friends outside of just your comfort zone. Let your children interact with people who are in different professions. All these things help, so that the exposure to a different world comes very organically to the child. All these little changes become organic versus being forced or pushed. So you will find after a while that the child will open up, if you're at it constantly without nagging, but in a nice way. So don't if the child says, I want to see Frozen for the 136th time, say, no, we're going to watch something different today. So these are small examples, but this happens in all of our houses. Children will take to some show, Peppa Pig, whatever, like I said, Frozen, and they want to watch the same thing again and again and again. After a point, you need to tell them, no, we need to see something new, and you need to sit down with your child and see it. Then the child will happily sit down. Then you can discuss it, come up with new things. The child will realize, okay, that was a good experience. I actually got to see something new. My mom spent time with me, or my dad, and it was fun after all. So whether it's food, whether it's movies, always find ways to kind of keep making your child try different things. Even taste in music. Sometimes I have so many arguments with my children. They're like, we don't want to listen to your old music, and I'm like, no, you will. You have to listen to the old music as well, because we listen to your music also. So keep doing that. Okay, what else do we have? We need to watch the way we react to change, says Sapna. Absolutely. Little tips. Talking with kids, says Sonali. Preparing them gradually really helps. Yes, I think it really helps. The more we interview and ask for the same friends for our kids in class, the less they will be able to ever step out of their comfort zone, says Sapna. Totally agree. And you never know. I mean, people actually have friends they met years later in life, or they may have friends that they have known for 35 years. But you have to, you have to expose them to those different things to meet those different people, right? And you never know. My 5-year-old daughter, says Indu, is missing the social interaction she would have had it been regular school. She goes to school only once a week and enjoys it, but now she doesn't enjoy the remote learning days because she passionately loves making friends. Loves making friends and talking to her teacher. What's your advice for such overly friendly, extrovert, energetic kids who are forced to limit their interaction to their device due to remote learning? Now, the thing about limiting it to a device is, in times like this, we really have no option. But what you can do is that you can turn that same device into a fun, happy experience also. So, this was an idea that someone gave me during a conversation. In fact, it was a psychologist. Why don't you encourage your child to start something with a group of friends online, like a book club? So instead of only looking at the device as something that they have to log into for studies, they can actually interact with their friends in a fun way, not only where the teacher is monitoring them, but it can be like a once a week, it can be once in 2 weeks, and the child will start looking forward to this. So at least you will have that some sort of face-to-face interaction. And today technology has enabled everything. So, till this sort of full, mobility comes about, we can't help it. We have to look after our children, we have to protect them. We're all in this, but you can do this. You can start maybe like a cooking thing. So, my younger daughter and my niece, during the lockdown, they would call each other on a video call, and they would just place the phone in the kitchen and they would bake the same recipe, bake cookies at the same time. Or one of them would be teaching the other one an art and craft. So they felt like that interaction was there, yet actually they were cities apart. So try that, Indu, and tell me if that works. Okay, lots more. For teenage kids, how to instill gratitude. Teenage kids are a different species and a different ball game altogether. But like I said, start these things early. Even now, I think with teenagers, you really need to be able to firstly talk to them when they are receptive. What happens is, I think, we just barge in with our lectures and start saying you're always on the device and you're doing this, your room is not clean, da 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 da. Who wants to constantly be lectured at? Nobody likes it, right? Find a time when your child is calm, your child is receptive. Talk to the child. Or I had said in one of my, in fact, I have a video on this. So if you like, you can go. I have a Facebook page and a YouTube channel called Let's Raise Good Kids, or follow me on Instagram on g.s.b. So I've done a video on instilling gratitude. I think there are very small, easy things to do. There's a gratitude jar you can start with. The child just writes one thing they're grateful for and puts it in the jar. Even 1 month later, you will be surprised that the child will only read that and say, my God, that's true. You know, so many good things have happened, or I have so much to be grateful for. Or without nagging them, I think it's important to teach them that they really need to not take everything that they have now for granted. So because they get to go on these fancy holidays and they get to fly in sometimes business class and they get to have all these gadgets that they want, it's important to tell them that this has come because of years and years of hard work that your parents have put in. And you have to earn this for yourself. It's not going to come to you naturally. So they must know that tomorrow when they go out into the world, they have to earn this for themselves. This is not going to come to them. They're going to start here. They're not going to be here. Because the difference between here and here also causes a lot of dissonance in their mind, also causes a lot of frustration, where they could suddenly say, I want this gadget, and they had it. The second most important thing, even with teenagers, is don't give them everything they want then and there. You know, this delayed gratification, it is very important. Let them earn it, let them work towards it. Even with my teenager, a lot of times I make them pitch in with their pocket money for things that they want, which I know are not essentials. Okay, fine, if it's something that they, you know, if they're into reading or they're into art, and you know they want some more supplies, I tell them sometimes you also pitch in and I'll also pitch in a little bit. Let them not see you as this constant ATM, like I say, where they can just keep coming and making demands. So you change your attitude and don't worry that, you know, there will be this fight. Of course there will be fights, it's okay. You know, you're here to be their friend, but you're also here to be their parent. That's part of it. They have to understand that. So try these small things for gratitude and I hope it will help. Okay. Yes, of course, not only teachers, I agree, even moms need to, you know, be applauded. I think all of us moms, dads, we need to give ourselves a pat on the back for managing really well. What can be done with a child who is one of a topper in class but doesn't participate or talk much? Goes unnoticed. For him, participation is not needed. Okay, so you know the thing is that every child is different and children communicate differently. Some kids are good at talking, some kids are good at expressing themselves through words, through writing, and some kids are very good at expressing themselves through other arts, performing arts, you know, theatre, music, dance. It could be arts as in your actual drawing, all of those, poetry, singing. So a child, don't always think that a child who speaks in class and is always the first one to raise their hands, that don't think that the other child is getting left behind. If it is a really big issue where the teacher is beginning to feel that this child doesn't know anything, then it's different. Otherwise, you know, the teacher also knows that this is a quiet child, but when I ask the child has understood and grasped everything. Maybe the child is not very, you know, forthcoming in terms of speech. But yes, communication is important, and that is another skill I will take up. So maybe you can join in that session and we can have that whole session on just communication. Hi Rashmi. Rashmi says, hey. Lots of people I can see. So I think that's it. I don't know if you have any more questions now. So we can probably end today's talk. I think it's been wonderful to chat with all of you. And thank you so much for your time. And once again, thank you, Universe Talkies, for giving me this platform. I didn't think I would be able to, you know, go on for 40 odd minutes, but I don't know where the time went. And I hope I can, you know, do another session, several more sessions, and I hope you all will join in with your questions. So that's it. Have a wonderful weekend, and thank you once again.